My Life as the Wife of DMX by Tashira Simmons with Monique S. Hall. You think you know, but you have no idea. Insanity. Earls, DMX manager, knocked on the door of my New Jersey home, asking me to please come with him to get Earl out of his hotel room. Earl had been locked inside of his room for 3 days and refused to come out. Unfortunately, this was not an unusual request. I was 8 months pregnant at the time and very tired of repeating this cycle over and over again. But I knew if I didn't agree to go, Earl was only going to get worse. You see, after 2 days of Earl constantly getting high, he gets a serious case of paranoia, and most likely he's sitting in that room with the gun on him, and the only person he will trust at this point is me. So grudgingly, I got my 175-pound, 8-month pregnant butt up and went to retrieve my man. The whole ride there, I'm thinking to myself, Earl really needs to get it together. We're not in the hood anymore. You're DMX, this big rapper with hit records, sold out shows, doing movies and everything. I can't believe he's still doing this. We're millionaires. But as I headed toward the hotel in fear of the scene I might find, and I was thinking it sure doesn't feel like we're millionaires. Whoever wrote Money Can Buy Happiness was full of bullshit. At this point in our lives, Earl and I had 2 cars apiece and money coming out of our ass. He was at the height of his career. All of our dreams had come true, and then this. He just cannot kick this demon. For a quick minute, when Earl got famous, I actually thought he was going to leave the drugs behind. That just shows how naive I was when it came to drugs. Earl was now a household name, a hit recording artist, a budding actor, and he had fulfilled his promise to get me and my son Xavier out of the hood. He made sure our wildest dreams come true. Surely this meant that he would really look at drugs and say, I don't need you anymore. I really believed he would totally leave drugs alone. I had fooled myself, and now I was pissed off. I stood outside the upscale hotel room while his manager knocked on the door. Earl quickly led us into a beautiful 1 bedroom suite filled with the stench of musty smoke. Just as I feared he was suffering from a serious case of paranoia and had crazed look in his eye, he was holding a gun in his hand as if it was a toy gun. He told us someone was after him. Sadly, this was the norm for me. I said, Earl, come on with this bullshit. I'm 8 months pregnant and you have a show to do in 2 days. You have to stop this and go home and get some rest. That's why I'm here. I'm here to take you home. He was high out of his mind at this point, but I must say it didn't matter how high Earl was when I came to get him. He knew I meant business, and he had to get his act together. His manager was scared out of his mind because he wasn't used to this type of stuff. I mean, who would be used to something like this? It's not every day you see someone just walking around mumbling about a non existent plot to get them while waving a fully loaded gun around like it's a toy. Earl went back in the bathroom to finish up his drugs while his manager and I sat uncomfortably in the room avoiding each other's gaze. I was pissed off because the room had a strong smell of whatever drugs Earl was using, and it was making me nauseous. Mind you, I am a pregnant woman, and I knew it wasn't good for me to be breathing this smell in. I started getting impatient and I shouted to Earl, if we don't leave now, I'm going to lose it. This smell is making me sick. It's not good for the baby. Thank God that woke him up for a second. He threw his drug stuff in the trash, stuffed his belongings in his book bag, and we headed for the door. His manager and I exchanged a relieved glance. We had gotten him out the room without a scene. Our relief did not last long because as we were walking down the hallway, Earl kept looking all around saying, Do you hear that? Hurry up, someone is following me. He held his book bag in front of him with his hand clutching the gun inside the bag. He was ready to draw his weapon at any minute. We got on the elevator, took it down, and entered the lobby. Just our luck, there was a big convention at the hotel, and the lobby was packed. I quickly turned to Earl and said, "Let's go." The crowd threw his paranoia into overdrive. He grabbed his bed closely with his hand still inside, gripping the gun as we exited the hotel. Now, Earl wasn't the only one paranoid. We were also pushing our way through the crowd. I silently prayed that God would get us through this lobby and out the front door without anyone getting shot. Suddenly, my prayers were interrupted with a muffled pop, and Earl's manager fell to the floor, clutching his foot. Blood was everywhere. I dropped my pocketbook and went down to the floor to help him. I said, "What the hell just happened?" Earl replied, "I told you someone was following me. They shot him." Meanwhile, I saw smoke coming out of Earl's book bag and it had a big hole at the bottom of it. His manager said, "Don't worry about me. I've only been shot in my foot. Just get him out of here." He knew the hotel security had probably called the police because by this time we were causing a big scene. I looked up and noticed that the crowd in the lobby had stopped milling about and was staring at us. I looked at Earl and his eyes were darted all over the place in a panic. I yelled, "Come on, let's go." We fled the scene, jumped into our black expedition, and raced away. I was scared to death. My mind was racing, my stomach was tightening up, and I wanted to go off on Earl so bad. But my mind was clear, and I knew he wasn't in his right state of mind. Earl was in a drug state of mind. I had to hold it together because we weren't out of the woods yet. I told him to let me drive, however, he insisted that he wanted to drive and refused to let me take the wheel. The whole situation was just crazy. As he pulled out the parking lot of the hotel, I heard sirens approaching, and then the police cars rushed into the parking lot. With everything going on, Earl became even more paranoid than he was before. He took the gun out of the bag and placed it on his lap. I was trying to be as calm as I could. I knew Earl was in a drug zone frame of mind, and it was important that I keep my mind clear, even though I was pushing back a cloud of fear. I didn't want to die, so I said, "Earl, throw the gun out the window in case we get pulled over. Otherwise, the police might kill us." He was so out of his mind, and everything I said went in one ear and out the other. I was trying my best to remain calm, cool, and collected. Earl was speeding toward the George Washington Bridge with the gun in his lap and a crazed look in his eyes. He had the sweat of paranoia dripping from his brow. I don't ever remember feeling so helpless in my life. I felt like I was in a horrible nightmare, and I was praying to be awakened because the way this was going, it was not looking good. As I peered toward the bridge, it looked like there was a roadblock forming, but I didn't say anything to Earl. I was trying to act as normal as possible and remain calm for Earl and our children. I kept praying and praying. I said to myself, "God, if you real, please help us. I want to live. I have one child and a baby on the way that I need to live for, so please, Lord, hear my cry." As we approached the bridge, I noticed a whole bunch of cops ahead. I cried out, "Earl, please, give me the gun and let me hold it. I don't want to die." He looked over at me and said, "You don't have to get all dramatic like that. Here." I took the gun and put it between my legs near my vagina and the growing baby. And with God's grace, we were the last car through before the police closed the blockade. We made it over the bridge, and I know to this very day that it was nothing but God's work. It was nothing short of a miracle.